Get in the fair. Blessings of the evening. Do the right thing. Call someone. Let them know they need to watch. That's how we do the right thing around here. Right? I've had a pretty busy day, so I promise I'll be on much earlier tomorrow. Promise we'll be on here much earlier tomorrow. What's going on with this? Okie dokie, that was strange. Okay. Okay, it's opening up now. Go get your fruit, your nuts. Curl up with your black queen. Curl up with your black king. Or curl up with your godly self. Your divine self. As usual, y'all know I don't get to eat until I'm sitting down. And yes, I have my homemade cashew, honey, cinnamon, nut butter. So I can dip my organic Fuji apples in them. That's very important. I appreciate you, Bartlett. Always. It's a very kind thing to say. Absolutely. Duao. Round table, I appreciate you very much so. Oh, wonderful. Okay. So, Roundtable RTG, when can we expect the follow-up to Kemetville in the short film? He purchased the short film and waiting on follow-up. Duao Nehim, thank you for participating. That's why I'm here so late, because I'm in meetings. Literally, I'm in meeting after meeting after meeting, because we are about to embark on another leg of this production journey of the web series that you've heard so much about, and that you will definitely begin to hear much more about as we go. So hold tight. That's I gave you guys a short film to hold you over, to whet your appetite, to get you guys ready. Okay. So Carlos, so much love. Absolutely, we appreciate that. All my peoples, I expect text 5 people and tell them to tune in. Okay? Text 5 people and tell them to tune in. It's going to get a bit ugly here because people you're going to have to watch me eat. It's not a pretty sight. But then again, it all depends on who you are. That's right. Let's get those likes up, people. I see. I'm not one of these big shots. I'm like, I see I got 1,000 people in here. Let me get 500. Look, right now I got 27 people in here. But I don't care if one person tunes in. If one person tunes in, that one person is going to learn. Well, people who watch it later will learn as well, but the one person who tunes in will learn it before everyone else. So I hope your days have been productive. If you failed, if you fell, if you made mistakes, don't beat yourself up too hard. Yeah. Intellectuals can suffer from that. Mommy C said, sorry, I don't know 5 people on my level. I don't even have one friend. Well, that's how you get them on your level, by telling them to watch. If we only reach out to people who are on our level, then we don't bring the rest up. We don't raise them up. And as far as not having one friend, that's how you make friends, by turning people on to things that they appreciate being exposed to. So hopefully I've offered some solutions to both of your dilemmas there. But thank you for coming in and spending time. And to one of the sponsors of the platform is here, Chismatic. Hey, you know what that means? Anytime we get a sponsor that shows up, we automatically honor them by playing the intro, right? But as always, I have to remember first to remove their comment so it doesn't block the intro. Right? So here we go. 3, 2, 1. Okay, welcome to the 3rd or 4th episode of ATM, a teachable moment with Shakka-Ahmose. I'm on low fuel tonight. That won't stop me from teaching, and it won't stop me from teaching effectively. I just may have a few speech blurbs. As you notice, I'm tripping all over my tongue since I showed up, right? So here we go. Okay. Right. Oh, you're welcome, Mama Isis. Absolutely. You're so very welcome. Okay. Absolutely. King James, Uncle Jaseneb to you. Life, health, prosperity. Life, prosperity, health to you. Okay. Hotep Jason. Okay. Did this bad boy open up? I got to get to where we left off. So, let's hold on one sec. I'm going to do that. In fact, I wonder if I put it in presentation mode, if I'll get there faster. Let's see. Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe not. I wonder why this thing is taking so long to open up. That's really strange. Normally, my presentation doesn't take that long to open up, but tonight it's like, forget about it. All right, we're almost there, I guess. What? Maybe I got too much knowledge in this. Too many facts. I have too many verifiable, documented facts in this presentation. So, 1 second. Here we go. Okay. Yeah, I kind of went in on the last one. This evening I may go a little easier. Not too much easier. But I want to get some rest so I can present earlier tomorrow on the platform. Okay. So hopefully I didn't gloss over these. I don't think I did. Right. No, I think I mentioned that. Right. I mentioned them. Yeah, I mentioned them. I did all of that. Yeah. I did all of that. Here we go. Okay. We are there. We are right where we need to be. Let me close that. Okay. All righty. Hotep, Jason, it's nice to see that many of you still use that term, Hotep, because the degenerates in the Black community waged a war against that word, and they still do sometimes. The way they use it derisively when they call people Hoteps, it's really just an expression of their ignorance because they don't know anything about the culture that produced that word or what that word means and what that word means to people like myself who were raised up in the culture. They don't understand or appreciate how disrespectful that is. But if you call somebody the wrong pronoun, they get offended. The same people who get offended if you call someone the wrong pronoun are the same people that denigrate that sacred word, Hotep, to us. It's a sacred word. And they taught white people how to denigrate it. So now white people use the term Hoteps. Right? Other non-black people, Asians, right? They use the term Hoteps now because degenerate black people who identify sexually before they do racially felt that it was okay to issue a smear campaign against that term Hotep simply because they discovered that ancient Kemet was decidedly anti-homosexual. You're not supposed to say things like that, unfortunately. You're not supposed to speak. We live in a time where facts, actual documented facts, offend people. So because a civilization is at odds with your current deviant worldview, you feel that gave you license to disrespect something that's sacred, to large swaths of people. And I'm not saying that our sacredness or what's sacred to us should be more important than what's sacred to you. Whatever you hold sacred is what you hold sacred. It doesn't mean that people in or from the Kemetic community should denigrate the sexual choices or identities of other people. But it should not prevent us from speaking factually when we're talking history, when we're talking culture, when we're talking facts. So if you're, some conversations are really only for grown-ups, and everyone is not as grown up as they purport themselves to be. Okay. Yeah, I might get put in that category because Lord knows how the old saying go. I can tear my ass when I'm ready. Yeah. Okay. So, it's too early for me to start eating. Still good. Well, all right. Okay. Yes, Naya. Our sacred knowledge, our sacred taboos, our sacred ancient land. That's right. Our turncoats teach the devil once scorned every time. Yes. It's true. Right. Yeah, that was the peace. Hey, Oakland in the house. I see you, sir. Always a pleasure to have you in. Always a pleasure to have you in. Absolutely. Okay. Always a pleasure to see you, brother. Okay. So, yes, I'm here this evening because I committed to consistency. I committed to fulfilling this ride. And this ride is going to continue for some time. I've been MIA for quite some time because I'm working on a lot of things. And many of the things that I'm working on, and please don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell so that you can get notifications when I come on, because a lot of people complain, oh, I don't get notified. Well, did you ring the bell to make sure that you get notified? Right. I think you have to click on the bell. So, I wish you guys could hear what I'm listening to right now in my ear. You would be shocked. Connecticut in the house. Hotep Augustus. Appreciate you. Appreciate you all for being here. If I seem a bit subdued, so I've been up and I'm still going strong. Don't ever let me being subdued fool you into thinking that my stamina is not doing what it's supposed to do. I'm having my own personal little mukbang. I'm listening to the theme to Black Hawk Down by Gotos Aran. I listen to it a lot because in order how is my stamina? As I said a moment ago, it's doing what it's supposed to do. I've been up since 7:30, 7 a.m. And I haven't stopped all day. And I committed to coming here this evening to present, to continue this ride. So for those of you who haven't been watching, if you haven't seen part 1 and part 2, in general, I am responding to 2 statements, or actually more, a few statements made by our brother Katt Williams in his world-renowned interview that he did on Club Shay Shay back in January. I call it the interview that keeps on giving, because it just created for good topics to discuss as it relates to my subject matter. My subject matter that I've invested so many years in was really and truly educating myself on top of the education I'd already received in the culture that I grew up in, which was already steeped in Kemet. But taking my own education and insight and matching it with my own capabilities, meaning in the pursuit of it, because everyone is not capable of pursuing the same thing to the same extent in any field, which is why you might find 5 singers all sitting in the same room. It doesn't mean that each one of them has the same level of quality or qualities that will allow them to pursue. Thank you very much. That will allow them to pursue. TT, I appreciate you. Absolutely. Mr. Triggs, Brother Triggs, Brother T, I appreciate you. My West Side Rider. Him. That reminds me. Y'all can tell I'm out of it. I didn't even put up my my hedge link. For those of you who don't know what hedge is, I'm looking on the wrong file. Hedge is the Eden Kemet word for money, for cash, as in Cash App, right? So that was supposed to be pinned to the top of my chat for those of you who would like to make your contribution and show your support. That's strange. Wonder why my head's cut off on my YouTube channel. I don't know. Oh, well, it doesn't really matter. Oh, there it goes. I was wondering what the heck is going on. Okay. So, let's see. Oh, that's what I was looking for. Yeah, I need to come here. Oh, I did that already. Okay, great. Pin message. Okay, great. So for anyone who would well, let me say this at the start of the presentation before I say, I invested a lot of time, years, and resources to learn the things that I've learned. And in light of that, I always make it clear to people that when you value something, you have to invest in it. You have to support it. You have to contribute to it, or it will wither and dissipate. And so I say that to say that do not be confounded that simply because I'm here on my platform, that this is a free presentation. It is not a free presentation. The price for this presentation is $10, and I simply request that you pay it of your own volition, and you do that despite visiting my Cash App and just showing your appreciation for whatever contribution I've made to your own learning, because we're going to move forward with the presentation this evening. And get back to the discussion at hand. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time in the chat like I normally do. Yeah, hedge does sound like hedge fund. Absolutely. That's probably where they got it from, right? Okay, so let's get started. Okay, before I do, I'm going to have some moo. It's the word for water, for those of you who don't know. It's good to be here. It really is. I didn't get a chance to stretch today, so I'm a little tight. But that's okay. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Very much so. Alexandria, I appreciate that. Very much so. That name, Alexandria. In fact, in many respects, Alexandria, that's what this presentation is about. It's about who are the Egyptians. Because Katt Williams said that in his statement, his specific statement was, like when they tell us Egyptians aren't black. And then he followed that up with, well, Egypt is in Africa. And as long as Egypt is in Africa, Egyptians are African. And when he said that, with my expertise on the subject matter, I had to really ask myself, well, are those true statements? Are they accurate? Because we get so accustomed to saying things that no one really bothers to really check the question and see what's being said. So if you go back to the first part of this presentation, I quoted two great minds, not necessarily on the same level, but I quoted two great minds that stressed getting the language right. And that's what this whole presentation is about. Also, perhaps tomorrow, I'm probably going to do an intermittent presentation on the comments that people have left on part 1 and part 2. Because one of the things that I noticed is that there are a few things in life that don't quit. And one of them is stupid. Right? Someone said to me that they said, Shaka, you're making this harder than it needs to be. Most people have never heard of Kemet. They only know of Egypt. So it's really just like semantics or something. And that's my whole point. You're wrong. It's not just semantics. If it didn't matter, they would have left the name of the country alone and just called it what the inhabitants called it. They changed it for a reason. And it's your ignorance of that reason that leaves you in that place of darkness in your mind where you don't know shit. And you think that other people are supposed to be comfortable not knowing anything because you're comfortable with that level of ignorance. And you think that it's okay to proceed as no, it's not okay. It is not the job of the colonized to further the colonization that has been imposed upon them. What kind of ass backward stuff is that? When did we become that complacent? When did we become that domesticated and domiciled? And passive. Sometimes people don't really understand the dangers of assimilation. Assimilation can be a dangerous thing. Usually for assimilation to take place, something of the former state has to be sacrificed, has to be lost in the process of assimilation. Black people are very little concerned with the things that they've lost. They're so busy. We're so busy trying to hold on to the little bit that we have and the little bit that we think that we're going to get, that we define as a lot, that those things which are actually a lot, which are the things that we lost, we think we put in the category of jest. And I always say, how is it that Black people, the people who receive the least amount of justice in this world, love to use the term just? Oh, it's just words. It's just a statement. It's just semantics. And I always tell people, Black people need to stop using that word. Until you can exact justice in the world the way others do, don't use the term. Okay? It's just not, don't use the term. So we're going to get started. I just wanted to wait for a few people to come in. Hopefully my brain will catch up with my mouth. Okay. So I didn't stretch today. Normally I stretch. Okay. So let's do this. Is there anything else I need to say before we get started? Anything else I need to show before we get started? Not yet. Let's do it. Oh, there is one thing. You all know. Most of you know, I'm producing a web series called Kemetville. You can see the t-shirt behind me. I recently produced a short film called The Last Night of a Tsar. And it was produced to highlight the coming of the web series, Kemetville. And we're getting ready to start the official crowdfunding campaign. So I'm looking forward to, I want to see Black people really show up and show out. And on that note, if you want to see the short film, you can just go to kemetville.com. It's called The Last Night of a Tsar. Or you can just look in the description of this video and you'll be able to see it. So I'm going to take a quick look at the trailer and then we're going to get started. Thank you very much. And that is the trailer. Nahem, Glenn, I appreciate you very much so. That is the trailer, Nahem, that is the trailer for The Last Night of a Tsar. If you'd like to see the full short film, the full theatrical film short, just go to Shakka-Ahmose.com, or you can just head to Kemetville.com. It will take you to the same place. Okay, the description is in the link. Okay, so, and in fact, what I can do and what I should do is just put this on the screen. So if anybody wants to go to the website while I am teaching, while I am in saber mode, right? I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Always, Bartlett. I appreciate you. India. Thank you so much. Absolutely. Shout out Houston, Texas in the house. Stick. Hey, always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. Absolutely. The trailer. Here we go. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, okay, there we go. This is the website, Shakka-Ahmose.com. If you go to Shakka-Ahmose.com, you can get one of our awesome classic Kemetville t-shirts. You can also get, and people love them. When they wear them, they get compliments everywhere they go. And we actually documented that on here. Somebody left that in the comment the other night, and I appreciated that. You also get the Kemet black t-shirt, which is fly. I always get compliments when I wear that. When I wear that, people always ask me where I get it from. I tell them, well, it's one of my shirts. It's one of the Kemetville t-shirts. It's part of the Kemetville family. And you can go watch the short film, and you can also see the trailer for the actual upcoming web series, which is Kemetville. It's just a trailer and an intro. You can see it there on the website. So rather than belabor the issue any longer, I really want to get to teaching. I want to get to presenting, rather, and getting in saber mode. So let's do that. And remember, I'm presenting on Firefox. I'm not presenting on Chrome. So I don't have full control of StreamYard the way I normally would if I was using Chrome. Okay. So let's get it popping. Okay. Allow. Okay, great. There we go. Right where I need to be. Okay, we have our brother Katt here. And make no bones about it. We love Katt. You know. Absolutely. I love Katt. I appreciate the brother. You know. I mean, I can't tell you I love him. I don't know him, I never met him. But as a brother, yeah, I'm gonna say that I appreciate him. Let me say I appreciate him. Right. And Katt, if you ever see this, I just want you to know that you know and I know that this is social media, and any one of us can ill afford to lose the opportunity to take advantage, not take for granted, but to take advantage of a momentous occasion that Katt provided by just speaking on the subject matter, whether he was inaccurate or accurate to some degree with respect to what I'm talking about now is irrelevant. In the scheme of things, as we get into the meat of the subject matter, it's very relevant because that's what the whole subject is about. So we dealt with part 2, where he said, like when they tell you Egyptians are not black. I think that when we look at it, we certainly proved that, or it was certainly demonstrated. Right, it was certainly demonstrated that the statement, this is not the statement, this is the second statement we're going to be looking at tonight. As long as Egypt is in Africa, Egyptians are African. The first statement, however, was like when they tell you the Egyptians are not black. We demonstrated beyond a shadow of a doubt that Egyptians are not black. Okay, you have some Egyptians who are black, but you have many Egyptians who are not black. And one of the things that I also wanted to point out, and I hope I did successfully, I think I did successfully, I'm just going to rewind a second, is I really wanted to demonstrate, I'm just going backwards into part, into part 2 for a second. Am I going that far back? Yeah, I think I might be going too far back, but I was looking for something that I thought, yeah, here it is. One of the things that I wanted to point out from part 1, or from part 2, is that when we talked about the bronze vessel, the men who were of bronze skin that was spoken about in the text, in the prophecy that Semiticus was subjected to, or which he was exposed to, when the prophetess said to him, and this was an ideological statement, using mythological to demonstrate something of history. Is it here? Let's see here. right here, where it says, the Said king had unsuspectedly fulfilled the words of an oracle, possibly of Ptah of Memphis, which promised the kingship of Egypt to the one who poured a libation from a bronze vessel. So that statement is focusing on a skin color that is bronze, right? It's one thing I always try to explain to people, and I don't think they really understand, and I don't think they really get it. And I always try to explain this to people. They love to say stupid things like the ancient world did not acknowledge race, and that skin color was of no significance in the ancient world. That is one of the biggest lies you will ever hear. Listen to what I'm telling you. It is one of the biggest myths that is told about history. And I think part of the reason that is told that is because a lot of people who are in control of history today, when they look back into history, they are not happy with the fact that they were not always displayed in a very respectable light in history. And so therefore, they try to make things disappear, right? Especially when the concept of race does not make them look good in history. So then they want to tell you, oh, well, the ancient world, they didn't acknowledge race. It's a lie. It is nothing but a lie. It's not even a myth. It's a lie. And what I try to explain to people is that they did indeed not acknowledge race. But what you have to remember about the ancient world and the way that they spoke is that when it came to certain things like sex, race, particularly sex and race, when it came to sex and race, they used coded language. They spoke in code. So here, when they're talking about, so I'll give you an example. When I think it's Stephanus of Byzantium, I'm not sure. It's one of these Roman historians. They refer to the people of ancient Kemet as the black-footed ones, right? So when you think about somebody who's black-footed, right? Well, if his feet are black or her feet are black, 9 times out of 10, so are her head, the hands, and the arms. So this is the way they spoke about things. Or when Aristotle was speaking about, purportedly speaking about the valor of race as it relates to courage, what did he say? He said, skin too black or too dark is the sign of a coward, or the sign of cowardice, as is witnessed by the Egyptians and the Ethiopians. So he lumped them skin color wise into the same bag. And then he said, and that same cowardice is also emblematic when the skin color is too light, as are women, females. He said the symbol or the sign or the color of courage is between the two. So that was a coded way of saying that black is the symbol of cowardice, white is the symbol of cowardice. It is that which is between black and white, which is the symbol of courage. That which is biracial, that which is multiracial. Because this is the way the nationalistic Greeks thought once they felt they located themselves in the known world. You have to understand how they saw geography. They saw themselves in the center of the world, in the middle of the known world. And as such, they felt all other places dealt with extremes, either too hot, too cold, and that because where they lived, it was temperate, they extended that or manufactured that into an entire value system where everything in the middle was what is the way things should be, and everything else is less than and undesirable. Okay, so he's speaking in code. Nehem, I appreciate you. Thank you so much, Singh. That's acknowledged and appreciated, and it matters. So, so I just wanted to bring that to your attention. And the other thing I want to bring to your attention before we get back to the other part of Katt Williams' statement about Egyptians being African because Egypt is in Africa. One of the things that I pointed out is that when we were talking about the Carians and who their descendants are and how the demographics are laid out in Egypt today, one of the things that I pointed out is that these people who live in the South, not as far as they live up to the border of Aswan, right? So before you get to Aswan, you're going to pass through these people. So Egypt is color graded from light to darker to darkest when you get into the South. So when you get these people in the South. But the point I wanted to make out is that, so these are Egyptians, and these are Egyptians, right? But they're not all the same people. And I would really want to point out between these two people, more important than the differences between these people are really the differences between these people. The problem is that most black people look at all light-skinned Egyptians as if they're the same people, and they're not. It's a very deadly mistake to make if you're trying to understand Egypt and who is who. They're not all the same people. All right? Those who would be the descendants of Carians would probably coalesce amongst these people, the bronze vessel men, right? Right here, they mentioned it again. The goddess of Buto, a key city in the Said domain and important for later connections in Upper Egypt. Also, this story up here will blow your mind once you find out about it. And I do end up telling you about it later on in the presentation. The goddess of Buto also promised the crown of Egypt to Semiticus if he would employ bronze men from the sea. So if the natives of Kemet were already bronze, they would not have highlighted that they had to bring bronze men from someplace else. The reason that their bronze skin color is highlighted in that coded language is to make a distinction between them and the natives who were not bronze. And they certainly were not talking about these people because there were no natives that looked like this during the time of Kemet, during the time of Tawi, during the time of Tameri, during the native nationalistic duration of the state. No people like this were there as natives or not even citizens. They would have been denizens. And if you don't know what the difference is between a citizen and a denizen, look it up. Okay. And we established through multiple sources the prominent role played by the Carians, the Helleno-Memphites. Okay. Okay. What is that? Okay. So, where are we? So, that brings us, I'm sorry, folks, hold on a second. Something is annoying me, and I need to address it. What the hell is that? Okay. Oh, it's probably sweat running down my freaking arm. Okay, anyway. So let's get back to it. 1 second. Okay. So most people spoke in code, Alexandria, back in that time in literature. In literature, they used coded language. Okay. Let's see. I'm still on present, so I can come back here and presentation mode. So let's get with this. So Katt Williams said, Egyptians are African. Egypt is in Africa, folks. And remember, this is part 3. So if you want to know how we got here, go back and watch part 1 and part 2. Egypt is in Africa. As long as Egypt is in Africa, then Egyptians are African. This is what Katt Williams said on Katt Williams Unleashed Club Shay Shay. Okay, it's what he said with drink in hand. So we're going to see, is that true? Okay, now let's look at the word Africa. Okay, this is from Online Etymology Dictionary. Old English, Africanus, native or inhabitant of Africa. Okay, so now, or African, which is what we're looking at. So are they inhabitants of Africa? Yes. So in that context, Katt would be correct. They're African because it describes inhabitants of Africa. From Latin Africanus, adjective of Africa, African. From Africa, see Africa. Used of white residents of Africa from 1815, referred to as Africans. Used of black residents of the U.S. from the 18th century, when it especially meant one bought from Africa. So one of the things that we've determined up to this point is that the term African is used in different contexts. So when you're saying somebody's African, you have to highlight the context in which you're saying that. So just because you say somebody's African don't mean they're black. Okay? All right. So what is the context? And if they're not black and we're not equating them to black Africans as Egyptians, then the statement that they're African becomes meaningless and doesn't even need to be highlighted because it's irrelevant. It doesn't prove any point. To say that they're Africans is an attempt to somehow equate them with us, with persons like myself, and with persons like I would just think Akon, the singer, or persons like I don't know, Angelique Kidjo or Fela or Nelson Mandela, right? Miriam Makeba, you know, Martin Luther King, right? Okay. And sometimes the word African was contrasted, or rather, so the term African used the black residents in the U.S. from 18th century when it especially meant one bought from Africa, and sometimes was contrasted to native-born Negro. Now, for the Aborigine dummies out there caught up in this Aborigine stuff, they're going to see that and think, see, the native-born Negro was nothing. No, that doesn't mean that. They have no reading comprehension, and they only know how to interpret in their narrow frame of their worldview. What that means is that there was a distinction made between Africans bought from Africa versus the Africans that were born here, that was produced from those very same Africans. That was the distinction that they made, okay? As an adjective, because at a point in time, they had stopped importing slaves straight from a continent, although people don't realize how late in slavery, American slavery, that ships from Africa was still being shipped into the harbors of America. People don't know because they don't do their research. So as an adjective, by 1560s, pertaining to Africa or Africans, Old English had Afrikanisc. From 1722 as of or pertaining to black Americans. So from 1722, that term African almost exclusively refers to black Americans. So it's almost the same type of connection in an ironic way. The same way that modern Egyptians, particularly the Mystico Egyptians like this, that's what they are. These are Mystico Egyptians. I'll explain that term later. It's a term that's normally affiliated with South America or Latin America, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, Cuba, and other places, many of the people there who are mixed with Spaniard and native population are referred to as mestizo. But that term originally did not refer to Latin people. It originally referred to literally, these people. When you look at the history of the word mestizo, you're going to find that it originally referred to these people. It's the same. That's why look at them. They look Dominican. He looks Dominican. He could be Dominican. He could be Dominican. They all look Dominican. The same people. Here we go. Not the same people, but same situation. So Latin Africa, African land, Libya, the Carthaginian territory, the province of Africa, Africa as a continent, feminine of adjective Africus, from Afreta and African. Now, this is the most important part. A word of uncertain origin. So when people try to tell you what Africa means or African, they don't know what they're talking about. The Latin word originally was used only in reference to the region around modern Tunisia. It gradually was extended to the whole continent. So the same way they did with the word Aegyptos, Egypt, extending it from Memphis to the whole country, is the same way they did this. This seems to be a common situation with foreigners, though they did accuse the native people of Kemet of doing the same thing. With Memphis, in fact, with Het-Kata. It gradually was extended to the whole continent. Derivation from a Phoenician cognate of Arabic, afar, dust, earth. It's tempting. And they say it's tempting because they really don't know the origin of the term. A Middle English word was Afrique. Okay. Now, I showed you in part one, in the preamble of the presentation, that DNA typically cannot tell you your race. However, I'm of the perspective that if that's how we are going to use DNA to indicate or to infer that it can tell you your race, then let's look at the DNA of these people that we're talking about and see who is who and what is what. Okay, because they love to say DNA doesn't lie. Well, if DNA doesn't lie, DNA may not lie, but I can tell you one thing: people lie about DNA, especially Egyptians. They're the biggest liars on the planet about DNA. Okay? And yet they had nothing to do at all with discovering it. Nothing to do at all with discovering it. But they want to brag about it because they think there's something special about their DNA. Okay. And to any Egyptians who may watch this, I want to be very clear about something. I want to be very, very clear. I want to be very clear about something. I speak disrespectfully about Egyptians because they speak disrespectfully about us. And I agree with Marcus Garvey, the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, when he said in the philosophies and opinions of Marcus Garvey, where he's documented as saying to Black people of the world, he said, respect those who respect you. But then he followed that up with disrespect those who disrespect you. Part of the problem with black people is because of political correctness or because of assimilation or because they value the opinion of others more than their own, is that they respond to disrespect with respect. That's dangerous because it invites more disrespect. Very dangerous. Okay? So, if I speak derisively of Egyptians, it's because on par and on average, I don't like them. And that's from personal interaction with them, normally on social media. But I also have to remind myself, and I always remind everyone else, that most people, not just white people and not just Egyptians, a lot of woke black people on social media are really very ill-informed, uneducated, and quite often don't know what they're talking about. You know, a lot of times they think that because they understand the big picture, they think that they confuse that with being intimately acquainted with the details. To be intimately acquainted with the details, you got to put in work. If you don't put in work, don't speak as if you are intimately acquainted with the details, because details will lead you down rabbit holes that you may not be prepared to go down. You'll want to stop when you think it's getting too deep. Okay? So, keeping that in mind, I always have to remind myself that my experience with Egyptians is usually and normally on social media. And I'd always have to remind them, Egypt is a third world country. It's not some big academic place full of Harvards and Yales and Oxfords and Cambridges, and it's not full of that. Okay? The most they might have is what? Cairo University or Al-Khazar, I think it is. You don't hear people you don't see people breaking their neck to go study in Egyptian universities. Right? You don't see that. You don't see people in America, oh, I got to go study in Egyptian university. No, they go study those African monuments that were built by the black natives, the original black natives. That's why people go to Egypt. Okay? If you take those pyramids out and the sphinx out and all of the stuff that was created by the black natives, there's no reason to go to Egypt. Nobody would go. Tourism would poof. So I understand why Egyptians play the pretend game that they are the descendants of those people that, no. Okay. Some of them are. Don't get me wrong. Some of them are. Right? But you've got to know who you're talking to. Right? It's like in America. When people talk about being descendants or, if you actually, and I don't get caught up in the whole black people are natives of America, and I don't get caught up in that. So you're talking about the conventional natives of America, the Arapaho, the Sioux, the Cheyenne, the Iroquois, the Apache, right? The Cherokee, right? The Blackfoot, and the Creek, right? The Shawnee, right? If you talk about these people, those that reside in America, so we could say, yes, there are natives here that are still here. Okay? That doesn't mean that everybody here is them. Okay? Okay. All right. So, and the same is true in Egypt, right? They claim some of the descendants of the natives of Kemet are still there, but don't confuse Kemet with Egypt or the Remech Kemet with the Egyptians. They're not the same people. Okay, not the same civilization. Okay, so let us continue. Share screen. I tend to reiterate things that I feel need to be stressed. So forgive me if I sound redundant. So this is entitled Northeast African Genomic Variation Shaped by the Continuity of Indigenous Groups and Eurasian Migrations, from 2017. All right, this is from the National Center for Biotechnology Information, National Library of Medicine, National Institute of Health.gov, right? And this one is an integrated personal and population-based Egyptian genome reference, right? One is from 2017, the other one is from 2020. Okay, so we're going to look at both of these studies and we're going to see what it says about Egyptians, because they want to tell us who we are not. Well, we're going to look and see who they are. Okay, and then by that we're going to know who they're not. Okay, so let's read this. The population history of the Copts. Talking about the Coptic community. The population history of the Copts and their relation to Egyptians. Now, I think that's a very strange. By the way, I want you to remember something. When you're reading these studies, you have to remember sometimes the language is funny because the people who actually do these studies are so unclear about what many of these words actually should mean, right? Just because you're a geneticist doesn't mean you're a historian, right? Just because you're a historian doesn't mean you're an anthropologist. So these are different disciplines. So because I tend to dab in all of these, and I'm sure many of these people do as well, unfortunately, I can see where they get the language wrong. So, or where they will structure it in a very strange way. So, let's look at this. Talking about the relation of Copts to Egyptians. Copts will tell you they are Egyptian, right? In fact, they'll tell you they're the real Egyptians, even though that's false. But they'll tell you that, right? The population history of the Copts and their relation to Egyptians. The Copts represent a well-known ethnic group generally practicing Christianity, which migrated from Egypt to Sudan around 200 years ago. So they're talking about the Sudanese Copts, okay? Settling in a predominantly Muslim region. The admixture analysis and the PCA displays the genetic affinity of the Copts to the Egyptian population. Assuming few clusters, the Copts appeared admixed between Near Eastern European populations and Northeastern Sudanese, and look similar in their genetic profile to the Egyptians. So when they use the term Egyptians, they're not talking about the native people of Kemet. They're talking about these modern people. Now that's the other thing too. This is where the what I call the mind fuckery. This is where the mind fuckery comes in. They speak about the Egyptians as if the Egyptians are a monolithic race. When we looked at the Egyptians earlier, I showed you different groups that are all qualified as Egyptian. So when they do a study like this and they talk about comparing one group to Egyptians, they don't clarify what Egyptians they're talking about. All Egyptians are not the same. They are not a race. So that's the psychological game that the West plays with you. And the Egyptians take advantage of it. They say, oh, we're not black, we're not white, we're Egyptian. Well, what about the black Egyptians? What about the white Egyptians? So we're going to talk about what they're, see, remember I told you they speak in code? These people still speak in code. They speak about the term Egyptian as if it defines a particular race of people. And it does not. It is not a racial term. Okay? In fact, it's purely a geographical term. Right? Flirting with an ethnic underpinning. So, but let's continue to read. So we're going to humor the authors of the article as if what they're saying makes sense, right? Because there's a more important aspect to the article that I want to zero in on. Assuming greater number of clusters. Now we're talking about the Copts, because people love to tell you that the Copts are the original Egyptians. They love to tell you this. The Copts form their own separate ancestry component that was shared with the Egyptians, but can also be found in Arab populations. So what that means, folks, is that the Copts essentially descend from the same ancestral root that is found in other Arab populations. It says it again. The Copts formed their own separate ancestry component that was shared with the Egyptians, but can also be found in Arab populations. So that should tell you that the Arabs, the Egyptians, and the Copts are all related. They're basically the same people. This behavior in the admixture analysis is consistent with shared ancestry between Copts and Egyptians and or additional genetic drift in the Copts. The Copts and the Egyptians have a historically documented shared history. We further investigate the relationships of the Copts and the Egyptians to other groups. All population histories tested in every possible combination of either Copts or Egyptians, and Bedouin and Nuer, with Juhansi, those are the Khoisan people, as outgroup to the others were rejected. Okay. Which points to a non-tree-like history of the Copts and Egyptians, right? So it's a non-tree-like history. Why? Because they're not a race, right? If they were a race, there would be a tree-like, there'd be a tree-like history. You know, a family tree, right? So now remember, these are Egyptians. These are Egyptians. These are Egyptians. Okay, these are Sudanese Egyptian Copts, right? And these are your Egyptians. So they're comparing these people to these people. Okay, don't confuse these people with these people. If you do, then you're stupid, right? These people have more in common with these people. Okay. Our results, now pay attention, folks. Our results instead indicate that they, the Copts, are an admixed population of at least one sub-Saharan population and one Eurasian population, but had subsequent admixture with additional groups. Now, what they're not going to tell you, what you're going to see in a second, that the amount of the sub-Saharan in the Copts is so small, you might as well not even mention it. Okay? Watch what I mean. I'm going to show it to you. The population tree that has the most support finds the Nuer, Nilotic, as an outgroup to the Bedouin and Copts. That means it doesn't go there, right? With the Nuer and Nilotic, it's going in a completely different direction, right? Right, and Copts and the Juhansi, or the, what do you call them? The Khoisan, right? The Nuer Bedouin Copts, right? So it's 00103, right? So whatever help, they're giving you the equal, right? They're giving you the correlation between the numbers. The Copts were estimated. Now listen. The Copts were estimated to be of 69.54% plus or minus 2.57 European ancestry. European. And the Egyptians of 70. Do you hear this? 70.65 plus or minus 2.47, which would basically put them at, if you do the plus or minus, right? For the Copts, if you minus the 2. Let's do it right. I didn't finish what the Egyptians were. The Egyptians are of 70.65% plus or minus 2.47 for European ancestry. Do you hear that? Do you hear that? The Egyptians are they're above 70% of European ancestry. The Europeans. The Europeans with some admixture. That's what they're, Europeans with a little bit of admixture. That's all they are. So with the Copts, if you minus it, the 2.47, if you minus it, it's going to be 66.97%. If you plus it, 72.11%. With the Egyptians, if you minus the 2.47, it's going to be 68.18%. If you plus it, You're going to put the Egyptians at 73.12% European. Round that off, they're 75% European. That's what they are. Now, how are you going to be 75% European and think that you are the same as the native population? The native population is not 75% European. For you to be the same as these people, you got to be what they are. They are not 75% European. These people are 75% European. That's not Shakka-Ahmose. That's the National Center for Biotechnology Information, the National Library of Medicine, and the National Institute of Health.gov. So these idiots are trying to fool you into thinking that they are the native population that built those pyramids and built the Sphinx, the head of Kemet, and that all those mummies and sarcophagus being dug up out the ground are them. You got to be out of your mind. These people are not 75% European. Queen Tai is not 75% European. Amenhotep III is not 75% European. Akhenaten is not 75% European. His daughter Merit Aten is not 75% European. And Tutankhamen, as much as y'all try to fake that fake white statue, is not 75% European. His queen Ankh-Enes-Amun is not 75% European. These are black people. In the South, in the United States, they would have had to use black bathrooms. They would have had to drink from black water fountains. Their status would have been black. Unless the government played the games that they like to play with immigration by designating North Africans as Caucasian, which is hilarious. And I'm not, the way that they play games with labels and names is Promethean. Okay. So let's look at it. Okay. 1 second. Right. So the cops were estimated to be of 69.54 plus or minus. So I'm repeating this again. Okay. These people are 75% European. These people are not 75% European. So how are they the same people? That don't even make any sense. Unless you stuck on stupid. If you are allergic to facts, then you think they're the same people. And no, none of this stuff is Photoshop. These dummy Egyptians are on Facebook telling people that these images are photoshopped. That is pathetic. Not only is it pathetic, it's an insult to black people. And like I said before, they have no problem with insulting black people. They're very comfortable with it. So I'm very comfortable insulting them. But here's the difference. We don't have to lie to insult them. They have to lie to insult us. First, they have to lie to themselves, and then they have to lie to the rest of the world. And then dumb, ignorant, uneducated white people in the West, in America, end up reinforcing the illusions and delusions that they have about themselves by referring to them, these Europeans, referring to these Europeans as the original native Egyptians or as the original native people of Kemet. They are the original Egyptians. They are not the people of Kemet. And if you don't know the difference between the two, you've got problems when it comes to this subject matter. These are Africans. These are not Katt Williams. Best, how about we say this? These are Africans by race. These are Africans by inhabitant. As the article said, an African is a person who is either inhabits it or is from the continent. So you have a choice contextually. Racially, these are not Africans. Okay? New Oxford American Dictionary. African, a person from Africa, especially a black person. That's why we refer to them as black. Or excuse me, as Africans. Okay? Or as black. You pick your choice. All right? According to Oxford American Dictionary, African, a person from Africa, especially a black person. Now, when they use that term, especially a black person, that means that that term Africa or African is much more invested in this phenotype, not in this phenotype. And they themselves will tell you. This one right here, the most important Egyptian in Egypt today, Dr. Zahi Hawass, he himself will tell you they are not Africans. And I agree. Being 75% European, you're not African. Okay? Adjective related to Africa or people of African descent. That would be people like me, myself. Origin from Latin Africanus, from Africa, terra, land of the Afri, the ancient people of North Africa, the Afri, right? And don't confuse these people because these, don't confuse these people with them because I'm going to show you that of all of the North Africans who have the so-called North African gene, Egyptians have the least of the North African gene. Okay? They have the least. The Egyptians are not the same as the Tunisians. They're not the same as the Moroccans. I mean, they're foreigners too. But there's a different story behind their foreign makeup. Okay. This is the other article. An integrated personal and population-based Egyptian genome reference. So now we're going to continue to study who these people are. Take the cat out of the bag and stop playing games and stop telling people that you built some damn pyramids when you did not. Here we confirm previously identified genetic components, yet using 2.5 times as many individuals and using WGS data for the majority of them. This is thus the hitherto most comprehensive data set on genetic diversity worldwide and in this region. The European, African, and Asian ancestry components of Egyptians are further supported by mitochondrial haplogroup assessment from mitochondrial DNA sequencing of 217 individuals, in addition to haplogroups of the same 110 Egyptian individuals described earlier. Again, they don't tell you who these Egyptians are. Are they the black Egyptians from Aswan? Are they the white Egyptians from Alexandria in the Greek corridors? Or are they these mestizo Egyptians who inhabit Cairo and other places, midway between Cairo and Elephantine and Aswan, and what's called prominently Middle Egypt, right? Okay, so it's a game that they play with this word Egyptian as if Egyptian is a race. So when they tell you they did this to Egyptians, they are in military, they speak in code. So they use the word Egyptian as a code to describe these kind of people. These are Egyptians. That's what they're telling you without telling you. Right? That's what they're telling you without telling you, which means that the Egyptians in the South, in Aswan, the black ones, they are not. That's their way of telling you without telling you that those are not real Egyptians. And they give them the fake name Nubians. They try to say those are Nubians in the South. Those people never called themselves Nubians. You know who gave them the name Nubians? These people did, in order to differentiate themselves. It was a power game. Know the history. Okay? Black people continue to let Europeans psych them out year in and year out, mostly because you're too lazy to study. Let's read this again. The European, African, and Asian ancestry components of Egyptians are further supported by mitochondria haplogroup assessment for mitochondria DNA sequencing of 217 individuals, in addition to haplogroups of the same 110 Egyptian individuals described earlier, for which 100 haplogroups are available from the literature. Mitochondria DNA sequencing revealed that Egyptians have haplogroups most frequently found in Europeans, 60%. Africans, so they're giving you what they are, and Europeans, HVTJ haplogroups, right? Slightly less than 60%. So that could be 59%. Okay? Africans, so they share haplogroups with Africans, particularly, for example, the L, with 24, so let's say almost 25%, a quarter. So it's like they have a quarter of African blood, right? Which ain't much. Or Asians, East Asians, right? For example, M with 6.7%, which is very low. Overall, this supports the admixture in PCA analysis and the notion that Egypt's transcontinental geographical location shaped Egyptian genetics. Now, mind you, they're talking about, they're really not even talking about these people, to be quite honest. They're talking about the other ones who would qualify more as the Carians, the descendants of the Carians. Lastly, we characterize the Egyptian population with respect to ROH. That's called run of hygieicity, right? So it means that they are measuring how much incest is in their genetics, because you got to remember, these people create what's called closed off communities. There's a term for it. And we'll look at it in a second, I'm sure. So the distribution of overall length of ROH larger than 5 MB is comparable for the Egyptian population and Middle Eastern populations, and to a lesser extent also other North African and West Asian populations. Okay. In comparison, Europeans and Sub-Saharan Africans have usually shorter ROH, which means there's less incest. There's less commonality with ancestor sharing. Amongst the Egyptians and the Copts, they show you that they share extremely close common ancestors, right? An abundance of long ROH is typical for the greater Middle East and reflects the common practice of what? Consanguineous marriages in this region. That means they was fucking each other. First cousins, second cousins, uncles having babies with nieces, that kind of thing. Right? That kind of thing. And that was more common in the Middle East than it was to the Africans. That's why Africans have a longer run of ROH. Says right here. In comparison, Europeans and Sub-Saharan Africans have usually shorter ROHs. So because we know that the Egyptians have a long ROH, just like the Copts, they have a long ROH, and they're telling you that is typical for the greater Middle East, which tells you that these people are Middle Eastern. They're not African. Duh. For those who can't read, what is consanguineous? Adjective, relating to or denoting people descended from the same ancestor. Consanguineous marriages. Same blood, together. That's what they are. They descended from the same ancestor, but it's in a very intimate, close way. If you look up what the word ROH means, it'll take you back to incestuous marriages. Now, these are the different groups that are Egyptians. If you go to the Encyclopedia Britannica, it's going to tell you the people of Egypt, ethnic groups, which means that all of these are Egyptians. But if all of these are Egyptians, why is it when we read the DNA test, they're trying to highlight one group as being Egyptians? That's the psychological game they play on you. They want you to think that these people are some magical race called Egyptians, while everybody else is just an honorary Egyptian. That's why I put the word Egyptian in quotation marks when I'm talking about the people who are designated Nubians today, right? So let's read it. European, Eurasian, Egyptian, Nubian, Arab, Berber, Kushites. The population of the Nile Valley and Delta, which are home to the overwhelming majority of Egyptians. You heard that? Okay, that's fine. They include the Nile Valley. It forms a fairly homogeneous group. Now, that's a lie. It does not form a fairly homogeneous group. I showed you what they all look like. They don't all look the same. So how are they homogeneous? Right? So now here's where this is propaganda. That's what I was looking for before. They put propaganda in the literature. Forms a fairly homogeneous group whose dominant physical characteristics are a result of the admixture of the indigenous African population with those of Arab ancestry. Within urban areas, the northern delta towns especially, foreign invaders and immigrants. You hear this? Foreign invaders and immigrants, Persians, Romans, Greeks, Crusaders, Turks, and Caucasians, or rather Circassians, long ago left behind a more heterogeneous mixture of physical types. So they're telling you, these people, that's who these people are. These people, they're Persians, they're Romans, they're Greeks, they're Crusaders, they're Turks and Caucasians. Right? Blonde and red hair, blue eyes, and lighter complexions are more common there than in the rural areas of the Delta, where peasant agriculturalists, the fellahin, have been less affected by intermarriage with outside groups. No, they're not less affected. The intermarriage that produced them took place in remote antiquity and in the countries that they came from, which are Asia, aka Turkey, Asia Minor, like the Caria, the Helleno-Memphites, right? The inhabitants of what is termed the Middle Nile Valley, roughly the area from Cairo to Aswan, are known as Saidi or Upper Egyptian. Though the Saidi as a group tend to be more culturally conservative, they are ethnically similar to the Lower Egyptians. So those are those people who are the descendants of the Qadia, the Helleno-Memphites, who now occupy Middle Egypt, as I said earlier. They are more or less ethnically similar to the Lower Egyptians, the ones who they just described over here in the first paragraph. This is Encyclopedia Britannica telling you who these people are. Okay? In the extreme southern valley, Nubians differ culturally and ethnically from other Egyptians. So if they use the term other Egyptians, that means Nubians are Egyptians. But when they're running those tests that they're showing you in DNA, are they including Nubians or are they excluding them? Because the Nubians are Egyptians, unless you want us to think that only the other different looking people, the lighter people, the bronze skinned people, only those are Egyptians. It's a mind game. It's mind fuckery that they're playing with you. It's a word salad, but it's coded. Although Nubians have mixed and intermarried with members of other ethnic groups, particularly with Arabs, and that's a big mistake to do, the dominant physical characteristics tend to be those of sub-Saharan Africa. The inhabitants of the Western Desert outside the oasis are of mixed Arab and Amazigh Berber descent. The deserts of Egypt contain nomadic, semi-nomadic, and sedentary but formerly nomadic groups with distinct ethnic characters, apart from a few non-Arab tribal groups and the mixed urban population. The inhabitants of the Sinai and the northern section of the eastern desert are all fairly recent immigrants from Arabia, who bear some physical resemblances to Arabian Bedouin. So all of these, you got all of these different constituents in Egypt, in Egypt, and you got people out there who want to say you're all African. That's bullshit. That doesn't make any sense at all. I'm sorry, it doesn't make any sense at all. They're Persians, they're Romans, they're Greeks, they're Crusaders, which means European, Turks, and Circassians, right? They are mixed Arab and Amazigh. Well, the Amazigh is, I got to give them a pass, right? Right? Who else are they that they mentioned? Right? Immigrants from Arabia who bear physical resemblance to Arabian Bedouin. The southern section of the eastern desert is inhabited by the Beja, who look more like the Nubian and who bear distinct resemblance to the surviving depictions of pre-dynastic Egyptians. The Egyptian Beja are divided into two groups, the Ababda and the Bisharin. Okay? So, let's look at it to make it all make sense. These are Egyptians. Look very closely. That's an Egyptian, European Eurasian, right? Then you have Egyptian, right? This is what they want you to think is an Egyptian. Okay? I'm going to show you that. Nubian, Arab. I'm sorry. These are not correlating with the pictures. These are just there to let you know who we're talking about. But this is a Nubian, so-called Nubian in Aswan. And this is the Beja, who they say look like the pre-dynastic Egyptians, which is false. They look like the dynastic people of Kemet. Now, look at Americans. So these words, I'm showing you this to tell you that these words, Egyptians and Americans, tell you nothing about race. Nothing. Zero. Right? Americans. Kevin Hart is an American. Taylor Swift is an American. So you telling me that because we are called by the same word that makes us the same race? That's stupid. That's absolutely stupid. That's an Egyptian. That's a Lebanese. That's an Egyptian. That's an American, right? With Lebanese ancestry, but they look just alike. Cardi B and her, same people. Taylor Swift and her like the same people. Kevin Hart and him look like the same people. This brother whose name I forget, they look like the same people from Avengers. Same people. But yet they want you to think that this name America and this name Egyptian means something racially. That you got to be stupid. You have to be stupid, all capital letters, if you think that this word denotes race or that this word denotes race. They do not. So when you get dumb white folks on the internet want to try to tell you who's Egyptian and who's not, and I have to say that because they're all up on the chat groups saying the dumbest things, and I wonder, I feel bad, I'm embarrassed. I'm like, I'm an American like you're an American. Come on, pretend that you're intelligent. Now, the big secret in all of this, and I waited to get to this point, is that the reason that I showed you this was to highlight these two right here. What they essentially want you to believe is that the true Egyptian looks like this. This is the archetype of the true Egyptian. Okay? Now, here's the thing. This term Egyptian, they don't refer to themselves as Egyptian. Only when they're talking to people in the West, when they're talking to foreigners, tourists, they refer to themselves as Egyptian. When they refer to themselves in their own verbiage, in their own languages, right? In their own language, Arabic, right? They refer to themselves as Yerkon Muktaliton. Yerkon Muktaliton. What does that mean? Mixed race. Or they refer to themselves as Misr. And they translate that as Egyptian. Misr. Although Misr does not mean Egyptian. Those are two different words with two different origins. Okay? They want you to think that out of all the people that we looked at, here you see 3 different phenotypes. 1, 2, 3. That's 3 different phenotypes. But what they want you to think is that this is the true phenotype of the true Egyptian. This midway, halfway, Yerkon, Muktalito, Mestico, Misir type of thing. They want you to think. That's how they speak. Egyptians are not white. What do they tell you? I tell you they speak coded language. They say Egyptians are not white. Egyptians are not black. Well, wait a minute. She's Egyptian and she's white. They're Egyptian and they're black. So why do they get to be the representatives of Egypt as if they are somehow the true people of the land? It's a joke. Yerkon Muktaliton, that's who they are. Misr, that's who they are. Mestico, that's who they are. Now, if you say they're African, now this is where it gets slick. I had one of them tell me, one of these Egyptians tell me, we are African and we are proud of it. We are just not black. That's what they told me. You know what I told him? I said, no, you're not African. I don't care what Katt Williams tell you, because I'm going to go with what your own guy said. What did Zahi Hawass say in the Daily News? He said, Egyptians are not Arabs and are not Africans, despite the fact that Egypt is in Africa. So they're telling you, they're not Africans. They're not Africans. This is not African, that's not African, that's not African, that's not African, that's not African. And they will tell you that. They're not Africans. The only time they will tell you they're Africans is when it benefits them. When it benefits them to say, oh, we are African. Right? When it benefits them. It's the same way they talk shit about black people, but now they're producing all of these Egyptian rappers who do rap music in Egypt now. So black people are shit and worthless, but you copy us in everything that we do. Now you got Egyptian rappers. These people are something else, right? That's what he said. And what did he say about Tutankhamen? He said, Tutankhamen, King Tut, this is what he said. King Tut was not black, and the portrayal of Egyptian civilization as black has no element of truth to it. Then what the hell is this? What is this? That's Tut's grandmother, that's his grandfather, and that's his father. The whole family black. But this carrion says, come on. Right? Oh, I want to show you something. I told you I was going to show you who the carrions are. Look at his nose, how it points downward like an arrow, and how his nostrils flare out. I want to show you something. Pay close attention. This is for the smart people in the house. Watch this. In fact, I'm going to do this for this. Here we go. So you can see it. Look at Zahi Hawass's nose, how it points downward literally like an arrow, and his nostrils flare out to the side. I'm going to show you where he got that from. Right there. See the carrion's nose? How it points down like an arrow, and then the nostrils flare to the side? It's the exact same nose. Because those are his Turkish ancestors. He is a descendant of the Carians, the Karia. I bullshit you not. Look at his nose. It points down the same way his points down. That's who they are. The Karia. And they're still there. The Hellenomemphites. The Egyptians. That's why they're connected to that word Egypt, because that's where they came into being in that country. In Egypt. But at the time, Egypt only referred to Memphis, Men-Nefer, Enuhej, right? Inbuhej, Inebuhej, right? This is who Hawass is. This was him when he was younger. Look. See how light he got? Look at that nose pointing down. That's who they are. The Carians. Here's a book if you want to study them. The Carians overseas, Egypt, Iran, Israel. Because they were known as mercenaries, they went and fought all over the place. And remember, Semiticus brought them to Egypt, and also Ashurbanipal of Assyria brought them to Egypt in his army. So they came in successive waves. I told you they were invited to Egypt the second time, not the first time. The first time they invaded with Ashurbanipal, as I documented for you in part 1, if you were paying attention. Go back and look at it. This is who Zahi Hawass is. He is a descendant of the Carians. He still wears their hallmark, that nose. Now, let's get the language right, as we said in part 1. These are not Egyptians. Okay? If you think they're Egyptians, then you're stupid and you're historically illiterate. I'm sorry to tell you that, but I'm telling you that with love. These are the Remech Kemet. Say it. Say the word. Remech Kemet. That's who they are. Do not call them Egyptians. When you call them Egyptians, it is insulting. This is not Egyptian. This is not Egyptian. I cannot repeat it or overstate it enough. These have nothing to do with Egypt. Egypt colonized them because they took over the country, or they inherited the country. They inherited the country, and then they superimposed their identity onto this older civilization known as Tawi, the two lands, Tameri, the beloved country, or Kemet, meaning the black town. Okay? The black city. And it has nothing to do with the soil of the country. That's another lie. This is what that country is called, Kemet. And this is how they spelled it. Kem. That's the phonogram right there. Kem. Right? And then to emphasize the M, right? They have the owl here. M. Kem. They're telling you, they're reinforcing the M. Kem. And they're connecting that M to the T right there. Kemet. Kemet. Right? And then this is the most important sign there. It does not mean land. This is not the glyph for land unless you're illiterate and you don't know how to read the Medu Neter. If you don't know how to read the Medu Neter, if you don't know how to read the script, what they call the hieroglyphics, if you don't know how to read it, then don't make false claims about what it means. It does not mean land. In no book will you find this meaning land. In no textbook from any university will you find this meaning land. They have specific glyphs that mean land, and words like ta, like tawi, or tameri. You can see it right there. The word ta is not in here. So how are you going to make this mean land? Right? It means inhabited place. When you want to get to the essential, an inhabited place. Technically, an incorporated town. Okay? An incorporated town. So number one, the ancient black Egyptians were black. Here they go. These people. Okay? These people were honorary Egyptians because they had to assimilate into the society of true Egypt, which was basically filled up with people that look like this. Right? During the late period. During the Roman period, in fact. This is during the Roman period. But these are also the descendants. These are not Romans. These are the descendants of the Helleno-Memphites. Okay, the Helleno-Memphites and who were the Carians and the Greeks. That's who these people are. Right? So these are ancient Egyptians, the black ones and the Mestizo ones. The ones who today are the archetype of today. That's these people. Right? And these are the modern Egyptians. These people are the ancestors of these people. Okay? That's who these people are. And then these people are related to these people. They are also Egyptians, modern Egyptians. So when Katt Williams says it's like when people that tell you Egypt, they weren't black, I put Kemet. That's what he should have said. I put this here because he should have said it's like people that tell you Kemet, they weren't black. That would have made sense. But he's not. That's why Martin Luther King, I put in part 1, Martin Luther King saying, we're going to get the language right tonight. And I also quoted the Israeli professor who said that the number one thing to master in the future is language. Language is the key. When you speak the wrong language, you're promoting the wrong ideas. You can't make sense out of wrong ideas. You can only make sense out of right ideas. Facts. So what Katt Williams should have said was, it's like when people tell you Kemet, they weren't black. That would have made sense. But to say, like when people tell you the Egyptians, they weren't black. Well, these are the only black Egyptians you got right here. That's it. And these were the people who were in close proximity, working in the house of Romans, working in the house of well-to-do Greeks. Right? They might have had some kind of status. Now, I'm going to show you something. Because this is all about getting the language right. This is a timeline. This is BC, BCE, this is CE. So when you go back to the beginning of the Old Kingdom, you got Tameri and Tawi. And although the term Kemet is used in the Old Kingdom, it does not become the name for the country until the Middle Kingdom. So from the Old Kingdom to the Middle Kingdom, you're talking 1,203 years. 1,203 years. Okay? This is the second intermediate period. It's all called Kemet through this whole area. Look at the length. Right? The length. Now, the Middle Kingdom alone lasted longer than black people have been in America. Lasted like 405 years or something like that. Okay? This is the second intermediate period, the New Kingdom, third intermediate period, the Late Kingdom. It's all called Kemet through this whole time. Even during the Ptolemaic period, it's still referred to as Kemet. If you read the text in the temples, it's still referred to as Kemet, even in the Greek period. The name of the country does not officially change until the Romans come and Egypt or Kemet becomes a province of Rome, at which time they imposed the name on it, which they inherited from the Greeks. The Greek had a different pronunciation and different spelling. The Greek was Aegyptos. The Romans, it was Aegyptus. So here's where it becomes the official name of the country. That's late. How do we know that? We know that because when you go into the text, this is from a text called Foreign Ethnics in Hellenistic Egypt. So this is during the Greek period. And in the Greek period, they had a tax system. This is from Prosobographia Ptolemaica, volume 10. Studia Hellenista. So this is Hellenistic studies. And this is 2002. This is not dated scholarship. This is recent scholarship by Kazbe Elada. Okay? And look at the classification. They give you ethnic designations in Hellenistic Egypt. Right? Who were those of the Epigon. Okay? So hold on one second. Here you go, right here. So the term for Greek in ancient, during the Greek period, during the Ptolemaic period, the term that they used was Wen. Wen meant Greek. So here you have Wen Mes. That means Greek born in what? Kemi. So they're calling it Kemi, a Greek born in Kemi. They're not even calling it Aegyptos yet. So as late as the Ptolemaic period, the country is still referred to as Kemet, but they changed it to Kemi. Right? Here's another classification. Winmes and Kemi, a Greek born in Kemi. But you notice, this Greek has quotation marks. Why? I'm going to tell you why. Because if you don't know history, you won't know this. Right? If you don't know history, you won't know this. The reason why you saw quotation marks around the second iteration of the term when, which means Greek, is because the term Greek was not just a racial or an ethnic term. It was also a status term, right? So you could inherit, if you were a black person of Kemet and you were living as a part of the household of a true Win, a Greek person, you could inherit their status upon their passing and their death. They could leave their status to you, but you could not be a true Win. So they would put quotation marks where it say Win, which means you are Greek, but you are Greek only in status. And you know how people like status. So can you imagine how many black people was walking around? I'm a Greek. I'm a Greek. Who it reminds you of? Them sororities and them fraternities. I'm a Greek. I'm a Greek. Yeah, you a Greek. You know where that came from? Bragging about being Greek? That comes from Alexandria and the Ptolemaic period, where being Greek meant you were superior to the black natives of Kemet. That's not debatable. And don't come to me with, oh, the Greeks were black, because they were not black in this period and in this time. You better know your Greeks. If you think the Dorians are the same as the Pelasgians, are the same as the Athenians, and are the same as the Achaeans, then you don't know your Greeks, because you're historically illiterate, as most black people are. So when I jump on white folks or Egyptians for being historically illiterate, don't feel bad. I'm an equal opportunity hater. Everybody's stupid from where I'm sitting. Everybody's stupid. Ain't nobody putting in the work. Don't nobody want to understand shit. They want easy stuff. Life ain't easy. People made shit complicated on purpose to keep people oppressed. Shit is complex now to keep you oppressed. So if you ain't got time to sit there and work out the complication, some people buy their way out of it. Some people could buy their way out of it. Some people will die a millionaire, and some people will die rich and stupid. Some people will leave this place with moderate wealth, but knowing. And you have to determine which one has greater value for yourself, right? It's an axiological question that each person has to answer for themselves. Because I know a whole lot of people with money, and they dumb as the day is long. I'm telling you, they dumb as the day is long. Facts. All you got to do is watch YouTube. That alone should tell you. People with money, they're not always the smartest person in the room. And they're very good at hiding it. I'm telling you. That's right, Alexandria. I like that. Can you really be rich if you're stupid? I don't think so. Or maybe you can be. I don't know. I'd like to find out. Like, I'm not going to shit on somebody because they're rich. Because you have a lot of rich people who are very intelligent. Rich don't make you stupid. Rich don't make you intelligent. Rich is going to make you more of what you already are. So if you're stupid, you're just going to be stupid times a million. If you're smart, you're going to be smart times a million. That's the way it works. It's a magnifier. That's all it is. Right? Okay. Okay. Now, let's continue looking and getting answers, because I'm all about the answers. Right? Present. Ooh. What am I looking for? Present, full screen, entire screen, allow. Right. So I wanted you to see this because nobody else is going to show you this. Okay. Foreign ethnics in Hellenistic Egypt. So when you look in their very records, you notice here it says Win Mesenkemi, a Greek born in Egypt. But over here it says Win Mesenkemi, but the Win is in quotation marks. That's important because it's not a real Greek. Okay. Here they're going to give you another one, right? This person is Tanahaket, right? And then beneath that, you're going to have a Win Mesenkemi again, right? Southern region of Apollinopolites, right? They were naming everything Greek by this time. Basically, at this time, Egypt is basically just Greece away from Greece. Again, on page 68, Win Mesenkemi, right? This person is from Pathitis. Another Win Mesenkemi, Pathitis again, right? This person is Honemheb of Parmerik, and his status is what? Win Mesenkemi, a Greek born in Kemet. Now, the reason why so many of these natives who are passing as Greeks, and then you have real Greeks like this person here, a Win Mesenkemi, but there's nothing around his Win, so this is a real Greek, right? He's born there. But I wanted you to see that so you could see it's documented that even at this late period, during the Hellenistic period, they're still referring to Kemet as Kemi, not Aegyptos. Okay? Okay. Now, Hikuta, the Greek origin of the exonym Egypt. We're going to look at this. What is an exonym? A name given to a place by what? Foreigners. So that word Egypt is a foreign name given to it by it is an exonym. So when you call the native people like Tut or Hatshepsut or Ramesses or any of those persons, Amos, when you call them Egyptian, it's an insult. It's an insult. You're calling them out of their name. You're calling them by the name. You're calling them by a colonial name. An exonym, also spelled exonym, is a toponym bestowed from the outside and in a language from the outside. The word Egypt is Greek. Aegyptos, Greek. Exonyms and the international standardization of geographical names, approaches towards resolution of an apparent contradiction. Okay? In contrast to an exonym, a locally used toponym. Oh, this is endonym. So an endonym is an opposite. So when we refer to them as the Nemech Kemet, that's an endonym. That's what they call themselves. In contrast to an endonym is a locally used toponym. That is a name used by a group of people to refer to themselves or their region. And the number one endonym in ancient Kemet was the word Kemet, because they used it to refer to the region and they used it to refer to themselves. In fact, the number one textbook in their schools was called Kemet, as opposed to a name given to them by others, such as Egypt, right? So this thing is called an endonym or an autonym, all right? So the toponym Egypt, an endonym or an exonym. It's an exonym. What is a toponym? A place name, especially one derived from a topographical feature. Okay? So the word Egypt is a name from the outside. It's got nothing to do with the pyramids, the Sphinx, King Tut, Tai, Hatshepsut, Mennefer, Enebuhedge. It has nothing to do with that. It's a late name from the late period. Very late. Homer, the Iliad, not even in the Iliad. The term Egypt is not even in the Iliad. You got to wait until Homer writes the Odyssey before you even see that word in print anywhere on planet Earth, other than the Linear B tablets. But even in the Linear B tablets, it's a foreign word. Okay? Again, this is not Egyptian. Not Egyptian. And this is not a question of semantics. This is what's at the heart of the whole argument. Because you're talking about what? Identity. This is what is at the heart of the whole argument. So when you debate people on Facebook or YouTube or TikTok, do not call these people ancient Egyptians. They are not ancient Egyptians. These are ancient Egyptians. These are the black ones. These are the Mystico ones. Or the Diakon Muktalon. The Roman ones. Yerkon Muktalon. Aikopitijo. Like from the linear tablets. This is where the word Egypt comes from. Aikopitijo. Aegyptos. Egypt. That's these people. That ain't got nothing to do with these people. They never heard the word. How would you feel if somebody was referring to us? It's like calling us niggas. We didn't call ourselves niggas in Africa. We didn't call ourselves that. Some people would say we didn't call ourselves African. That's true too. No problem. Right? But at least the term Africa does what? It designates a particular the continent from which we come. Right? I don't know if I can say that with the word Aikopitijo. Aegyptos. That was originally referring to one little district. And not by the people from that district. Okay. So, all right, this is for tomorrow. I'm going to end it here. I'm going to stop that part there. Okay. So, I think that's wonderful. Absolutely. God, Shaka, you have my mind open like a sponge. You always make me think of things I never thought before. Well, that's wonderful. That's good to know. I'm not wasting my time. I like to know that people are paying attention. Thank you so much, Alexandria. I appreciate that. Let's see here. And I'll show you something. Can I see it on my desktop? Can I show them? Yes. So I'm going to show you something on my desktop. Hold on one second. Okay. I'm going to show you this. Will it come here? Yeah, it should be there. So when I go present, share screen. So Alexandria, I'm showing you this particularly because I just want you to know where my mind has been on this subject matter. This is Alexandria that you're looking at. It's from the film Agora. Okay, it's from the film Agora. And the Agora was a place out in the marketplace where people would meet to have debates and talk and teach. And this is supposed to be the scholar Hypatia, played by Rebecca, I forgot her name. But it's one of my favorite films. I really enjoy it. And when I look at this, it reminds me, I look at this every day, at least 2 or 3 times. It reminds me of why I'm coming to present tonight, or where I am in my thinking. And where I am in my thinking is I'm thinking about the colonizers of Kemet. I'm thinking about how Alexandria came to be. Because when you read the right stuff, they will tell you, I think I read it to you already, where it said Alexandria was not the beginning of Greek hegemony in Kemet. It was the summation of it, the culmination of it. It had started many years earlier under Psammetichus, the Libyan pharaoh the Libyan king, the Libyan pharaoh of Kemet, who fought against the Cushites who were on the throne, the bloodline of Taharqa. Okay, so I wanted to share this with you. This is one of my favorite pictures. I keep it as one of my screensavers. Let me see. One thing we don't use when you refer to Kemet, if I think that's who you're referring to, is we don't use the term tribes. Tribe is a colonial term. See, this is what I mean. You got to get the language right. It's too much that black people don't know. You don't use the word tribes to refer to people in Africa. Okay? That's a colonial term that denotes backwards, uncouth, illiterate, and small numbers. That's what it denotes. If you go to Oxford or Cambridge, that is what the professor will tell you. Because if you respond, and I'm quoting this from one of my favorite lectures by Dr. Femi Biko, if you respond to the professor in the European classroom, because they like to talk about the tribes of Africa, the Igbo, the Yoruba, the this, the that, the tribes, right? The Fula, the Dinka, right? All these different people, right? The tribes, my tribe, this tribe, that tribe. Well, if you sit in that classroom and you say to that white teacher, oh, and you're in England, so you say, oh, so the tribes here are the Anglos and the Welsh, right? Or the Anglos and the Saxons. These are the tribes here. Then the white teacher would say, no. No. That term usually means illiterate also. So now he's trying to push the term back on Africa, or it means they're pre-literate. They don't have any writing. Another lie they like to talk about Africans not having writing, right? What do you think the hieroglyphs are? It's African writing, right? So I just wanted to point that out. Here we go. Okay. So, I wanted to share these things with you. The next part that's coming up in the presentation for part 4 is a whole nother topic. It's something else Katt Williams said, and I'm going to address it. Okay. Some of you may have seen it because I let the slide slip up. It's okay. But I wanted you to see that. Again, this was not a free presentation. Because if you make it free, I will not be able to continue to do it. I will have to go work at Target or work at some airport. I don't know. What do people do these? I don't know what people do, right? I'm always so busy studying or teaching or producing something or just there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on that I am involved with. So I just have to stay focused, and that's it. You know, it's I'm a little precarious because a lot of the things that I'm doing are things that I've never done before, right? So because of the web series, I really have to put on a producer's hat at a level that I've never had to before. So I just got to roll with it. You know what I mean? You can't let, especially this day and age, you can't let the fact that you've never done something before intimidate you. You just got to go to it. Step to it, handle your business, problem solve all the way through. So that's the, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the next one's going to be hot. The next one's going to cause a lot of controversy. I can tell you that much. The next one is going to cause a lot of, yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. They are fine dissing everybody else. They love dissing everyone else. No question about it. Absolutely. Oh, yeah, you definitely want to watch. You definitely want to go check out the other two. No question about it. Man, Xandria's all up in here. She owning the chat tonight. Everybody else. Man, everybody else. Where's everybody else? Everybody else gone. Right? So, But yeah, it's going to be good. Yeah. Right. No, they're not misinformed. No, they're not misinformed. They know very well what they're doing. Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate that very much, Zandria. Very much so. Absolutely. So, and I appreciate you being here. I appreciate all of you being here. So, with that, I did what I came to do. I kept my word. I said I would get to part 3. Tomorrow afternoon will be part 4. Because I'm not going to be up here late at night. Right? I got 91 people in here with me. There needs to be 91 likes. There needs to be 91 subscribes. There needs to be 91 people visiting the Cash App saying, well, quite a few people did. So let's just say there needs to be at least 80 people visiting the Cash App to pay for this presentation. The price was $10. We use the African tradition. You watch it first and then you pay when you're done based on the value that you got from it. Okay? So, but you, of course, pay. If not, then that's stealing. Right? So, I appreciate you all. I want you to rest your minds tonight. Think about the things that I've shown you. If these things, I tell people this, if these things are not important to you, that's fine. I don't believe in dragging people here and say, look, this is important, this matters. It's important. It's important. If it wasn't important, I wouldn't be presenting on it. If it was important enough for Katt Williams to say, if it was important enough for Kevin Hart to say, if it was important enough for all of these black celebrities for some reason who need to jump on the stage and talk about ancient Egyptians being black and who built the pyramids and blah, 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 then at what point do we have the conversation and the discourse where it actually makes sense? You understand what I'm saying? That's the whole point. At some point, you got to get to a point that you can't deviate from. You can't go back unless you just want to talk stupid and speak gibberish, like calling those people ancient Egyptians when they're not. Okay? So that's why the web series is called Kemetville, not ancient Egypt or Egyptville. No, Kemetville. And now, I'm show you how people are. So now these Egyptians are catching on that people are starting to become familiar with the term Kemet. So now they're really trying to colonize that term now for themselves. Yeah, which to me is crazy. I don't know how you're claiming Egypt when, or you're claiming ancient Kemet and everything that comes with it. Like Allah ain't got nothing to do with those pyramids. Muhammad has nothing to do with those pyramids. Nothing to do with it whatsoever. Right? So I would tell you just, you guys stick with the mosque, you stick with the Quran and Allah, you stick with that and leave the African religion to Africans. Leave the African creations to Africans. And it don't matter if they West African, South African, we don't divide like that. Okay? I'm not saying we don't divide. We're human beings. We do divide, but not where you designate that we divide. It don't work like that. Okay. But I wish you all well. It doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, what you do. Because one thing I don't do is I don't go to sleep mad at the world. I don't go to sleep upset or angry with anyone. And I'm mentioning that because I'm about to rest. Okay? I'm about to rest my body, rest my mind, rest my spirit. So that I can embrace the day tomorrow with hope, with faith, with love, with respect, and with the fervor to win and to achieve. Why? Because I got to do it for the Ville. Shout out to Ka'abet. Shout out to Joe Isla. Shout out to Unzulugani. Shout out to Raymond Hardman. Shout out to my brother Sanetta. Shout out to T.C. Atkinson, of course. Shout out to Hillary and the family. I love y'all. Absolutely. Who else? His wonderful queen and his wonderful little prince. Shout out to all of you for being here with me tonight. It really means a lot to me. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, 1980s Pain Train. Thank you, Alexandria. That name, you know, the person who deflowered me was named Alexandria, and ironically, she literally fit the criteria of what Alexandria represented. Alexandria was multiracial in every sense of the word, and that's exactly what she was. She was a composite of all of those particular races. The Turkish, the Italian, the black, all of it. She was all of that. Yeah. My older sister's best friend. She deflowered me. And I'm not I wasn't complaining then, I'm not complaining now. Right? So yeah. With that said, hit the like, people. Please hit the like. I got 75 people in here. Hit the like, hit the love, subscribe, hit that bell so you get the notifications. And I will be in much better shape and rarer form to take us through the next segment of this presentation tomorrow. This is going to be a, I don't want to say an extensive presentation, but it's a substantive presentation. And when I've said all I've had to say on it, I'm going to move on to the next one. So that one's already in the tank because Katt Williams gave another interview on the Joe Rogan show where he said a whole bunch of other things that I just feel need to be addressed. When you're talking about Kemet, and you're talking about even ancient Egypt, because of who I am and what I do, I'm going to address it, especially if you're talking to the black community, because my mandate has always been to educate the black community concerning this particular subject matter because they've been so miseducated about it. And it's not by accident. When somebody's trying to miseducate you on purpose, that means they're trying to keep you from something that can what? Benefit you. So if you're too stupid to know what the benefit is, that's not my fault. That you didn't do your research or you haven't done your homework or none of that shit is my fault. What you don't blame me for what you don't have in your brain. Just like I'm not going to give you credit for what I have in mind. Makes sense, right? Okay. That said, I appreciate you very much so. Biz, I appreciate that very much so. So with that said, and I mean that in all sincerity. With that said, folks, I'm gonna exit out on this one. I'm gonna say I love playing this every
I'm black.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, I'm from Egypt. I'm an Egyptian.
Okay.
I'm from Aswan. So all Egyptian Aswan like black color.
I love that, brother.
I think it's correct. We all before are black. Yeah, that's my opinion. We all are black before.
So you agree that the true pharaonic?
Yeah.
Okay.
The real the new color is black.
Thank you.
I love it. Absolutely. And let's take a look at the original. Before we go, we're going to look at the original trailer for the web series Kemetville. When I first started producing and was just putting the ideas together, just take a quick look at it. There you go, folks. That was for you. That was an old version of the trailer when I first started producing it. And I just kept it because I love it when I see it. I wanted to share that with you guys. So with that said, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I appreciate that. Absolutely. Well, the Ankh Mirror connection too. Yeah, wasn't that? Yeah, like, but you have to think the way that they thought to be able to come up with that kind of stuff. You have to really have an intimate relationship with their language, because the people of ancient Kemet, they really thought in a very distinct way. And the more time you spend with the way that they thought, the more you can understand things without even reading it somewhere, or you just understand it because you know how they thought. Your mind begins to match their expressive patterns, and or it begins to process in similar ways. And that's what happens. But I mean, that's when you spend real time with that. So yeah, the Ankh Mirror connection. Yeah. And yeah, once you really spend enough time with them, that's it. Okay, so let me play what I'm supposed to play to actually get us out of here tonight. And that's this right here. Boom. Receipts, people, receipts. Uncle Jasaneb, Meru. Oh, by the way, if I've offended anybody, it's okay. You'll be okay. You'll be fine. Okay? You'll heal. You're a big, strong person. Okay? You know, I was just thinking, I'm going to end it on this. I was thinking it's really interesting that people can say what they want about Michael Jackson, but the one thing I give that man credit for is he really used his work to highlight the welfare of children. I don't care about all that other stuff, right? He really did. And the reason I'm saying that is because nobody does that anymore. You don't really hear artists and people really highlighting the welfare of children and making it really prominent, you know, like something that really needs to be addressed in the world. You don't. It's like everybody's so caught up in technology. For real. Everybody's caught up in this techno. Look, Uncle Dustin, I'm out. I got to know when to stop. I need somebody sitting right next to me, tapping me, going, Shaka, Shaka, Shaka. Let's go. Okay. Oh, let me not say that. Be careful, you might get what you asked for. Hotel people, I'm out. You can tell I'm tired. You know, when you get tired, you just get stupid, right? So, anyway, well, I do. I get goofy, right? So, I'm out. Uncle Justin Ed. Peace. Hotel. Get in the fit.